My friend, there comes a time in life when the greatest act of courage is not to be seen, not to be heard, but to withdraw, to disappear, not as an escape from responsibility, but as a preparation for transformation. The world praises constant activity, endless noise, and the spotlight of attention. Yet history proves that the most powerful transformations happen in silence, away from the eyes of the world. When you disappear, you are not running away. You are stepping into a private battlefield where your old self must die, so that a greater self can be born. The weak spirit fears solitude because it exposes truth. The strong spirit seeks it because it knows that silence is the forge of destiny. You must understand, the world will always try to pull you back into its distractions, its trivialities, its temptations. But if you are serious about transformation, you must break free from the chains of familiarity. The friends who keep you small, the routines that keep you stagnant, the habits that keep you weak, these must be left behind. To disappear is to declare, I will no longer be the prisoner of my past. The power of withdrawal is one of the most misunderstood forces in human development. Most people are conditioned to believe that progress means constant action, constant visibility, and constant noise. They measure growth by what the world can see, rather than by the silent work being done within. Yet the truth is, no great transformation can occur until a man or woman learns to withdraw. Withdrawal is not weakness, it is not defeat, and it is not avoidance. It is the deliberate act of stepping away from distractions, people, and environments that sap your strength, so that you may gather all your energy and direct it toward a higher purpose. Think of the archer who pulls back the bowstring. To the untrained eye, it may seem as though the arrow is moving backward, away from its goal. But in reality, that backward motion is the source of its power. Without the pull of withdrawal, there can be no release, no momentum, and no piercing of the target. So it is with your life. When you withdraw, when you step back from the noise of the world, you are not falling behind. You are gathering force for the moment when you will surge forward. The average person fears silence and solitude. They are addicted to the presence of others, to the opinions of the crowd, to the endless chatter of the world. They fear being alone because it exposes their inner emptiness. Yet the strong, the visionary, the destined, such men and women understand that withdrawal is where clarity is found. It is in the stillness of solitude that the voice of your true self can finally be heard. When you are constantly surrounded by others, their thoughts drown out your own. When you are bombarded by endless entertainment and distraction, your imagination loses its edge. But in withdrawal, you sharpen your mind like a blade on stone. Consider the great inventors, leaders, and builders of history. They all had seasons of withdrawal, moments when they vanished from the public eye to develop, to prepare, to cultivate their inner resources. A seed cannot grow in the open sun until it has first been buried in darkness. Likewise, you cannot rise into the fullness of who you are meant to be until you have learned to retreat into the fertile soil of solitude. Withdrawal is not about abandoning the world forever, but about leaving it long enough to return stronger, wiser, and more powerful. When you withdraw, you strip away the illusions that hold you captive. You see who your true friends are, who truly values you, and what truly matters. You begin to separate your authentic desires from the expectations others have placed upon you. You discover which habits serve you and which destroy you. This cleansing process is painful at times because it requires honesty, but it is absolutely necessary for transformation. Without withdrawal, you remain trapped in the cycle of repetition, doing what you've always done because you never stopped long enough to question why. Withdrawal also gives birth to discipline. When you are removed from the constant pull of social approval, you are forced to rely on your own inner compass. No applause, no validation, no external reward. Only the quiet discipline of keeping promises to yourself. This is the crucible in which strength of character is formed. The man who can command himself in solitude will one day command nations. The woman who can master her thoughts in silence will one day shape the thoughts of millions. And so, the power of withdrawal is not optional if you desire transformation. It is the foundation. It is the womb of rebirth. Without it, you may achieve noise, recognition, and fleeting success, but you will never achieve mastery of yourself. To withdraw is to gather strength, to silence the world so you can hear your destiny, to step back so you can leap forward. It is the preparation ground where the old self is stripped away and the new self begins to form in secret. The law of inner silence is one of the greatest principles of transformation, yet it is one of the least practiced. In a world that worships noise, speed, and constant motion, silence appears almost unnatural. People rush to fill every empty space with sound, every pause with distraction, every quiet moment with chatter. They believe silence is emptiness, when in truth, silence is the womb of power. It is in silence that the invisible forces of thought, imagination, and faith take shape. Without silence, the mind remains scattered, like a wild horse running in all directions, but reaching no destination. With silence, the mind becomes focused, sharpened, and powerful enough to bend circumstances to its will. The law of inner silence demands that you learn to quiet not only the noise of the outer world, but also the noise within your own mind. You may walk into an empty room and still carry a storm of thoughts, fears, and doubts inside you. That inner noise is often more dangerous than the outer distractions. To obey the law of silence is to master your inner dialogue, to tame your restless thoughts, and to bring your emotions under control. When the inner world becomes calm, it radiates outward, commanding order in the outer world. Every achievement, every victory, every transformation begins in the stillness of a mind that has learned to be silent. Imagine the surface of a lake. When the water is disturbed, it cannot reflect anything clearly. The image becomes broken, distorted, impossible to recognize. But when the water is still, it becomes a perfect mirror. So it is with your mind. When it is agitated by fear, by worry, by the endless voices of others, it cannot reflect truth. It cannot see the opportunities, the solutions, or the higher vision waiting to be recognized. But when you learn to quiet the waters of your mind, you begin to see clearly. Ideas appear. Insights surface. Directions become visible. This is the law of inner silence. At work, clarity emerges when the noise subsides. The great leaders, thinkers, and creators of history understood this law, even if they did not name it. They withdrew into silence before making their greatest decisions. They spent hours in quiet contemplation before speaking words that moved nations. They listened to the whisper of intuition, which is always drowned out by noise, but always revealed in silence. Those who despise silence will always be slaves to the louder voices of the world. Those who master silence become rulers over themselves and eventually over circumstances. To practice inner silence is not easy, because the world has trained you to seek distraction. The moment you sit in stillness, your mind begins to pull you toward movement. It tells you to check a message, to recall a worry, to plan tomorrow's work, to replay yesterday's mistakes. But this resistance is proof of silence's power. The mind fights silence because silence exposes the truth. It reveals the weaknesses you've ignored, the fears you've buried, the desires you've neglected. Yet if you can sit with that silence long enough, you will discover that behind the discomfort lies freedom. You begin to hear your own voice again, not the borrowed voices of society. You begin to feel the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat, reminding you that life itself flows from within, not from without. Inner silence is not mere absence of sound. It is the presence of mastery. It is the place where thought turns into vision, where vision turns into plan, and where plan turns into action. It is the unseen chamber where the blueprint of your transformation is drawn. No great structure is built without a blueprint, and no blueprint is drawn in chaos. Silence is the drafting table of destiny. Those who learn to sit with it, embrace it, and use it unlock the secret power to transform not only themselves but the very world around them. Detach to create is one of the most challenging, yet liberating disciplines a person can embrace. Most people live chained to an identity they did not consciously choose. They become prisoners of their own history, their old stories, their titles, their relationships, and the expectations placed upon them by others. They carry these attachments like heavy weights, convincing themselves that without them they would be nothing. Yet transformation begins the moment you dare to detach. To detach is to release your grip on the life that no longer serves you, so that your hands may be free to build the life you were meant to live. Detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean rejecting the people you love or abandoning your responsibilities. It means loosening the hold that the past and the familiar have on your future. It means refusing to let yesterday's version of yourself dictate tomorrow's possibilities. Imagine an artist who never lets go of his old painting because he fears he cannot create something better. He stares at the canvas day after day, unwilling to begin anew. In clinging to what is already finished, he denies himself the masterpiece he could yet create. So it is with life. Until you detach from the identity you've outgrown, you cannot create yourself into the one you were destined to become. Every great transformation is an act of recreation, and recreation always requires detachment. The snake cannot grow unless it sheds its skin. The seed cannot rise into a tree unless it breaks away from its shell. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly unless it abandons the form it once knew. Nature itself testifies to this truth. Detachment is the doorway to evolution. When you cling too tightly to what is, you suffocate what could be. When you let go, you open the gates to limitless possibility. But detachment requires courage. It requires the strength to endure uncertainty, to walk through seasons when you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you are becoming. This in-between stage is uncomfortable. It feels like losing yourself. It feels like death. And in truth, it is a death, the death of the old identity. Yet without that death, there can be no resurrection. Those who cling to what is safe, familiar, and comfortable remain trapped in mediocrity. Those who detach, who dare to let go, discover the power to recreate themselves into something extraordinary. Detachment also demands honesty. You must ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? Who am I without the titles, the roles, the possessions, the praise of others? If everything I cling to were stripped away, what would remain? These questions reveal the foundation upon which true recreation is built. Most people fear these questions because the answers expose how fragile their sense of self truly is. But the one who dares to face this truth discovers a deeper power, the ability to consciously choose who they will become. When you detach, you stop being the accidental product of your environment and begin to be the deliberate architect of your destiny. Recreation is an intentional act. It is not about escaping into fantasy. It is about constructing a new reality with vision, discipline, and persistence. To recreate yourself, you must first see clearly who you want to be. Then you must strip away the parts of your life that no longer align with that vision. Old habits must die. Old ways of thinking must be challenged. Old environments that keep you small must be abandoned. In their place, you build new disciplines, new beliefs, and new associations that support the higher version of yourself. This is not an overnight process. It is the slow, steady chiseling of a sculptor who sees the masterpiece hidden within the stone and removes everything that does not belong. When you detach, you reclaim your power. You are no longer bound by the opinions of others, by the failures of your past, or by the comfort of routine. You become fluid, adaptable, and limitless. You gain the freedom to reinvent, to rise higher, to create a life that reflects the greatness within you. Detachment is not loss, it is liberation. And recreation is not fantasy. It is the birthright of anyone bold enough to let go of who they were in order to embrace who they are meant to be. The invisible season of growth is a law written into the fabric of life itself, and yet most people fail to recognize it. They want instant results, immediate recognition, and overnight transformation. They measure their progress by what the world can see, forgetting that the greatest progress is often hidden. The seed does not sprout the moment it is planted. It first disappears beneath the soil unseen, silent, and forgotten. Days, weeks, sometimes months may pass with no visible change. Yet in that dark and invisible place, roots are forming, strength is being built, and life is preparing to break through. So it is with your own growth. Before the world sees your transformation, you must endure a season where nothing seems to be happening. That season is not failure, it is preparation. Most people cannot endure this invisible stage. They abandon their dreams because the results are not immediate. They mistake silence for stagnation and waiting for wasting. But those who understand the invisible season of growth know that it is in these hidden stages that greatness is truly forged. Your discipline, your patience, your resilience, all of these are tested when no one is watching. It is easy to remain committed when the crowd is cheering you on. But who will you be when no one applauds, when no one notices, when you are left alone with only your vision and your effort? The invisible season reveals whether your desire is shallow or unshakable. In nature, the tallest trees spend the longest time building roots underground before they rise toward the sky. Without those roots, their height would destroy them. A strong wind would knock them down because they were not grounded. Likewise, in your own journey, the invisible season is where your roots are established. It is where you develop the strength to withstand the storms of life once your success becomes visible. If you rise too quickly, without depth, your fall will be just as quick. But if you allow yourself the patience to grow unseen, to deepen your roots, then no storm will uproot you when you finally emerge into the light. The invisible season of growth also teaches you to find validation within rather than without. When no one sees your effort, you are forced to rely on your own sense of purpose. You cannot lean on applause or recognition. You must learn to celebrate your own small victories, to remain faithful to your vision even when the world is silent. This inner validation becomes your anchor, because when success finally arrives, you will not be addicted to the approval of others. You will know how to stand firm in your own conviction. But this season is not only about patience, it is about preparation. The reason life hides your growth for a time is to prepare you for the responsibility of visibility. If success came too soon, you would not be ready to carry it. The weight of responsibility would crush you. In the hidden season, you are given time to build habits, to refine skills, to strengthen your character. It is a classroom without walls, a training ground without witnesses. And when the time is right, your preparation will meet opportunity, and the world will call it overnight success. But you will know the truth. It was years in the making. To endure the invisible season of growth, you must trust the process. Just as the farmer trusts the seed he planted will one day yield a harvest, you must trust that the unseen work you are doing today will one day bear fruit. Your daily disciplines, your quiet sacrifices, your silent battles, they are not in vain. They are building a foundation that will sustain the weight of the life you are creating. The invisible season of growth is not punishment. It is a gift. It is where you are shaped, strengthened, and made ready. It is proof that you are being prepared for something greater than the eye can see. And though it may feel lonely, it is in this very loneliness that destiny is forming within you. Waiting for the moment it will break through the soil and reveal to the world what was always hidden inside. Burn the old bridges is a command to the soul that desires true transformation. It means eliminating the possibility of returning to the person you once were. Too many lives remain half-changed because people leave themselves an escape route, a path back to their comfort zone. They say they want to grow. They say they want to rise. But deep inside, they keep a door open to the old ways, the old habits, the old identity. And as long as that door remains, transformation will remain incomplete. The man who wishes to conquer a land must destroy the ships that brought him there. For only then will he fight with the resolve that comes from having no way back. Burning the bridges means committing fully to your new self and refusing to give your old self any chance to reclaim you. This act is frightening because it requires sacrifice. It means letting go of people who keep you tied to who you were, even if they once meant everything to you. It means abandoning habits that once gave you comfort, but secretly kept you small. It means refusing to return to the environment that made mediocrity feel acceptable. When you burn the bridges, you cut off the possibility of retreat, and that pressure ignites a new kind of strength within you. The mind becomes sharper, the will becomes fiercer, and the heart learns to move forward with absolute determination. Without this finality, you will always drift back into the arms of the familiar. Think of the man who decides to quit a destructive habit, but keeps a little hidden away, just in case. That small allowance is the bridge he never burned, and sooner or later he will walk back across it. Or the dreamer who wants to pursue a higher calling, but refuses to leave behind the safety of his current environment. He convinces himself he can do both, cling to the old while stepping into the new. But no one ever crosses into greatness while keeping one foot chained to the past. You cannot live two lives. The fire of transformation will not ignite until you throw everything into it that belongs to your old self. When you burn the old bridges, you free yourself from divided loyalty. You cannot serve two masters. You will either remain faithful to your old self or devote yourself to your new one. Divided focus creates weak results. Wholehearted focus creates transformation. This is why so few ever truly change. They want the comfort of the old while reaching for the promise of the new. But fire and water cannot occupy the same space, and neither can the old identity and the new. You must choose, and in choosing, you must be ruthless with what you leave behind. Burning the bridges also protects you from temptation. When the journey gets hard, and it always will, the mind naturally longs for the path of least resistance. If a way back exists, you will find yourself walking it. But if there is no return, the only choice is to endure, to adapt, and to conquer. This is how strength is built. A person without retreat will find within themselves reservoirs of courage and creativity they never knew existed. The removal of safety nets forces the awakening of power. The act of burning the bridges is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the declaration that you have chosen a new life and will not dishonor that choice by keeping the old one alive. It is the death of compromise. And though the fire may feel painful as it consumes what once defined you, it also illuminates the path ahead. In its light, you see freedom, strength, and the possibility of becoming someone greater than you ever imagined. The bridges to your past are not meant to carry you forward. They are meant to be destroyed so that your only option is to rise. The blueprint of the mind is the foundation upon which every transformation is built. Before a house is constructed, an architect must first design it on paper. Before a city is raised, a vision must exist in the mind of a planner. And before a new self can emerge, it must first be created in thought. Everything you will ever become begins as an image within your own imagination. The world you live in today is nothing more than the reflection of the pictures you have carried in your mind until now. If you desire to rise, you must first change the design. You cannot build a palace on the blueprint of a shack, and you cannot create greatness with the thought patterns of mediocrity. The mind is the drafting table of destiny. Every thought etched upon it leaves a mark. Every belief becomes a line in the design. Over time, those lines form a structure, and that structure becomes your reality. Most people live in houses of limitation because their mental blueprints are filled with doubt, fear, and small thinking. They wonder why their lives are cramped, why opportunities seem scarce, why they keep running into the same walls. The truth is simple. They never redesigned the architecture of their mind. They are trying to build a new life on old plans. Transformation demands that you erase those lines of limitation and draw new ones of possibility. This is why imagination is one of the greatest gifts you possess. With it, you can rehearse a future that does not yet exist. You can design a self that has never yet been seen. You can step into the workshop of silence, close your eyes, and construct a vision of yourself stronger, wiser, wealthier, freer than you have ever been. This act is not fantasy. It is creation in its earliest stage. Every great invention, every great success, every great achievement was once invisible, existing only in the blueprint of a mind bold enough to design it. But creating the blueprint requires discipline. You cannot casually think of a better life once in a while and expect it to form. Just as an architect carefully revises his designs, so must you carefully craft the images you hold in your mind. Repetition is the ink with which you draw. The more you imagine yourself as the person you desire to be, the deeper that image imprints upon your subconscious. And once it is deeply imprinted, it begins to pull your actions, your habits, and even your circumstances into alignment with it. What you consistently think about, you move toward. What you believe in detail, you eventually experience in reality. Yet many sabotage themselves by holding conflicting blueprints. They imagine greatness for a moment, but return to thoughts of failure the next. They see themselves victorious in the morning, but defeated by evening. This divided design produces confusion and instability in life. The blueprint must be clear, consistent, and unwavering. You must choose the design of the life you want and refuse to redraw it according to temporary emotions or setbacks. The blueprint is not meant to shift with every passing storm. It is meant to remain steady until the structure it represents stands tall. Once the blueprint is drawn, action becomes inevitable. Just as a builder cannot ignore the plans he has been given, your mind cannot ignore the design you impress upon it. Your subconscious will begin guiding your choices, attracting opportunities, and awakening ideas to match the image you have created. What seems like chance encounters or sudden inspirations are often the natural result of a blueprint that has been deeply set. Life begins to arrange itself around the design in your mind, as though unseen forces are helping to lay each brick in place. The blueprint of the mind is your greatest power, for it allows you to become the deliberate architect of your own destiny. No matter where you are now, no matter what you have been, you can pick up the pen of imagination and begin to draw again. And the moment you do, you shift from being a victim of circumstance to a creator of circumstance. The house you live in tomorrow is already waiting in the blueprint of your mind today. Design it with courage, build it with persistence, and it will rise before your eyes. Reappear with authority is the final stage of transformation. The moment when you step back into the world no longer as the person who once disappeared, but as someone reborn. Disappearance without reemergence is not transformation. It is retreat. True power lies in the ability to vanish for a season, to do the hidden work in silence, and then to return with a presence so undeniable that the world cannot ignore you. Authority is not demanded, it is commanded. It flows from the discipline you cultivated in solitude, the mastery you built in silence, and the strength you gained through struggle. When you reappear, you do not need to announce your change. Your very presence testifies to it. Authority is the reward of those who endure the process fully. Many disappear, but few return stronger. Some retreat into silence, but never do the inner work. They waste the hidden season on comfort instead of creation. Others begin to transform, but leave old bridges standing, and when the pressure mounts, they walk back into their former selves. But the one who disappears with intention, who burns the bridges, who designs a new blueprint, who survives the invisible season of growth, this one reappears with authority, and when they do, their life becomes a beacon. People who once doubted them now respect them. Environments that once rejected them now seek them. Opportunities that once seemed distant now open effortlessly. Reappearing with authority does not mean arrogance. It does not mean shouting to the world, "Look at me." True authority is quiet yet undeniable. It is the confidence in your voice, the steadiness in your actions, the clarity in your vision. It is the magnetic pull that makes others listen when you speak, not because you force them to, but because they can sense that you carry weight. Authority cannot be faked, for it is born of real transformation. It is not something you wear like clothing, it is something you radiate like light. When you reappear, you become a symbol of possibility. People who knew you before will marvel at your growth. They will wonder how you became so disciplined, so clear, so powerful. And in their wonder you give hope, because your transformation proves that change is possible for anyone who is willing to pay the price. But authority also brings responsibility. The one who reappears must now live in alignment with the higher self they have created. The world will test you, tempt you, and try to drag you back into old ways. Authority means standing firm, refusing to compromise, and holding yourself to the standard you set in silence. Reappearing with authority also means serving with your gifts. You did not disappear only to return for yourself. You disappeared so that your transformation could impact others. Your words now carry influence. Your example inspires action, and your life becomes a map for those who are still lost. Authority without service becomes tyranny, but authority combined with service becomes legacy. You are not meant to hoard your transformation. You are meant to embody it so fully that it elevates everyone who encounters you. And let us not forget, authority is not about perfection. You will still face struggles, you will still encounter failures, but the difference is that now you face them as someone transformed. You no longer bow to them. You confront them with mastery. You no longer fear them. You understand they are stepping stones, not obstacles. The person who reappears with authority no longer lives as a victim of life, but as its creator. Reappearing with authority is the ultimate declaration that your disappearance was not defeat, but preparation. You left the world for a time not to run away, but to rise higher. And now, standing before it with renewed strength, sharper vision, and unshakable resolve, you prove that true transformation is real. When you reappear with authority, you no longer chase recognition. You attract it. You no longer beg for respect. You command it. You no longer seek permission to live fully. You live fully, and the world adjusts itself around you. This is the crown of transformation, to return not as you were, but as who you were always meant to be. The journey of disappearing and transforming yourself is not for the faint of heart. It demands that you step away from the noise of the world, that you embrace the silence others fear, that you detach from the identity you once clung to, that you endure the invisible season of growth, that you burn the bridges back to your old self, that you design a new blueprint in your mind, and that you return with authority. This is not a casual path. It is not for those who want comfort more than change, or approval more than power. It is for the one who understands that true greatness is not found in imitation, but in reinvention. Disappearing is the first act of courage. It is the declaration that you will no longer be shaped by the shallow distractions that bind the masses. In that disappearance, you find silence, and in silence, you discover truth. The noise of the world has always been the greatest enemy of transformation, for it blinds the eye and deafens the ear. But the law of inner silence teaches you that once you quiet the chaos within, you awaken the voice of wisdom that has always been waiting. And yet silence alone is not enough. You must detach from who you were. You must let go of the false security of your past self, understanding that clinging to what is familiar keeps you small. Transformation is impossible until you shed the skin of yesterday. The invisible season of growth then follows, testing your patience, your resolve, your faith. Nothing may appear to be happening on the outside, but within, roots are being established, strength is being built, and destiny is preparing itself for its appointed hour. But the old life is cunning. It will always call you back. That is why you must burn the bridges. Every path that leads to the person you no longer wish to be must be destroyed. No escape routes, no safety nets, no secret passageways back into mediocrity. When retreat is no longer an option, only progress remains. In that state, your mind becomes fertile ground for creation, and you draw the new blueprint of your life. Every detail imagined, every picture held, every belief embraced becomes a line in the design of the self you are becoming. Then, when the design is complete, when the roots are deep, when the old bridges are ash, and when silence has carved discipline into your soul, you are ready to reappear. But you do not reappear as the same person who disappeared. You return transformed, radiating authority that no one can deny. Your presence speaks before your mouth opens. Your life becomes a testimony that reinvention is possible, that power is not inherited but created, that destiny is not given but built. The world may not understand where you went or how you changed, but it will not be able to ignore who you have become. Authority cannot be faked, it must be earned. And you will have earned it in the solitude, in the silence, in the struggle, in the unseen battles that no one else witnessed. That authority will not only lift you, it will inspire others to begin their own journey of transformation. So let the world misinterpret your disappearance. Let them whisper, let them doubt, let them wonder. They cannot see what is happening in the silence. They cannot feel the roots growing deep. But in time, they will see. They will see you return stronger than you have ever been, sharper than you have ever thought, more disciplined than you have ever lived. And when you stand before them, you will not need to explain. Your very being will speak, I have disappeared, I have transformed, and I have remerged as the person I was always meant to be. This is the call to anyone who longs for more than an ordinary life. Disappear, embrace silence, detach, endure the hidden season, burn the bridges, draw the blueprint, and when the time is right, reappear with authority.